I woke up to a chainsaw right outside my bedroom window. Not the lazy buzz you ignore on a Saturday, but a full-throated snarl, chewing the cold air at dawn. And when I opened the door, two guys in neon vests were tossing my winter into the back of a pickup, with Elk Hollow Estates painted on the door. My split tamarack and lodgepole, stacked all summer under a green tarp, now flying into their truck like it belonged to them. And by noon, a white envelope was taped to my door with a $600 violation and a neat little line about community standards and relocation, That happened. My name is Evan Cole. I live on the ragged edge of Elk Hollow, where the valley holds onto. Winter, like an old grudge. My place is a modest cabin, with a shed and a wood rack. That's more lifeline than decor. You know what I mean, the association calls my lot a transitional parcel between orderly lanes and the woods, but my deed calls it mine. I work with my hands, build decks and fix roofs, and I split my own fuel because when wind cuts through this valley in January, a real stack of seasoned wood beats a brochure about approved mailbox colors every time. The HOA president, Patricia Hale, had the kind of smile that came with a clipboard. Early morning enforcement like cardio fines for hoses, warnings for bird feeders, a tidy script about property values. So when I drove to the lodge, because the number on the notice just rang to voicemail, she was ready for me. Coffee and copier smell in the lobby. Her voice sweet like a hard candy. You want to spit out, Mr. Cole? Your woodpile is unsightly. We relocated it to community storage. Submit a written request, weigh the penalty. Bring your property into compliance. I kept my palms flat on the counter, and my jaw unclenched, told myself not to give her the scene she wanted, and walked out with photos of my empty rack. Their plate number, the notice taped to my peeling paint. Every little receipt of a morning that had come to steal my heat. Then snow came early, the kind that hushes the road and burns your lungs. And I felt the hole that missing wood left in my day. So when I passed Patricia's house under a cold moon and saw a familiar green tarp tucked behind her fence, bungees clipped the way I always clip them, a little knot on the end log. I knew like handwriting. I parked and looked, and there it was. My initials burned into the end grain. Not community storage. Patricia's backyard. And I laughed once. Not happy. Just amazed at the confidence of a person who steals your coat and then waves at you from the porch wearing it. I went home, wrote a short ad. Premium seasoned tamarack and lodgepole dry. Local cash-only delivery available, and the next morning I got a message through the app that made me sit down at the table and say out loud, "Of course you did. Hello, this is Elk Hollow Estates. The lodge needs 2 cords of firewood. Can you deliver within 24 hours? Cash on delivery," I said Des. That night, I borrowed a neighbor's trailer, drove to the chain-link yard behind the maintenance shed, where community storage lived under a sorry padlock. Bolt cutters are a tool. I used them, and I loaded every stick that was mine with a steady kind of calm. Not rage. Just correction, and at sunrise, I stacked 2 cords by the big stone fireplace, while Patricia watched from the porch in a coat that looked expensive enough to have opinions. "Perfect," she said. "This looks familiar. Excellent quality. Seasoned local." I said, "Best in the valley." She counted the cash, hinted they might order more next week. And I drove away with sawdust in my hair and something like gravity settling back into place. The cease and desist came 3 days later. "Unauthorized commercial activity," the letter said. which is hilarious when your customer is the one sending it hilarious, until 2 deputies knock at dusk and ask if you sold the HOA wood that belonged to the HOA, and I lay out my kitchen table like a courtroom. Screenshots of the lodge, order, timestamps, the photo of their truck in my driveway. The morning the chainsaw sang, delivery slips with signatures, one deputy tries not to smile. "This is a civil thing, not criminal," he says. And I nod, "Thanks for your time, gentlemen." And 10 minutes after they leave, my phone buzzes with an unknown number. "Enjoy your little stunt. The board is preparing formal action." I didn't need a signature to hear the perfume of Patricia's voice in the text. Then came the barricade at the bottom of my drive. Orange cones plywood. Maintenance in progress. Sign my truck, caged like a guilty dog. And I recorded the whole thing while the cold bit my fingers. Emailed Red Summit County roads with my parcel map. And an hour later, a county truck rolled up. The guy looked at the plywood and said, "You want to move your art project, or should I?" By the time Patricia marched down in her storm boots, he was loading the wood into his bed. Unauthorized obstruction on a private access. You're lucky I'm not writing a citation. And I pretended to shovel snow by the mailbox like a man enjoying a live radio show. The storm settled in. Deeper power. Fluttered. The lodge generator sputtered. Space heaters hummed blue, and Patricia called with a voice that avoided "Please" like a hot stove, "Mr. Cole." "Do you have stock left?" I said. "I did. Rates are up this season." "Cash only, huh?" she said. And I delivered stacked photographed, not gouging my neighbors, either sold at cost to folks with old stoves traded for diesel when wallets were thin, because there's a difference between scoring a point and living with yourself tomorrow. The real twist arrived one quiet evening when I paid a small fee for public records and opened the association's annual budget on my laptop. Maintenance materials, $3,400, vendor, Hale Property Services. Patricia's husband description, wood removal and disposal. The line glowed on the screen like it knew what it was, and I printed copies, highlighted page 4, and slid them into mailboxes with a simple note. Ever wonder where your dues go? See here, by morning the neighborhood board was a bonfire. People who never post had things to say. I thought the lodge wood was donated. How do we pay for removal and then burn it? Why are we buying from the guy you find that night? Patricia called an emergency meeting that smelled like damage control and coffee, and I stood in back by the coats until the room tilted my way. "If you want the short version," I said. Patricia had wood taken from outside, HOA jurisdiction, paid her husband's company to do it, then burned that wood in the lodge and bought more from me while threatening me for selling. I have the county map, the deed, the video, the receipts. We can take this to court, or we can take it to the front page. Your call, and I felt the floor steady under my boots. 2 days later, a black SUV rolled up my drive wool coats. Manila envelope, defamation interference, property damages for unlicensed sales. On HOA land, the last claim was a gift with a bow, because by putting in writing that my parcel belonged to Elk Hollow. Without a recorded annexation, they stapled a lie to their own suit. I called my friend Rick, a lawyer who smiles like he's heard every story twice, and he said, "She just wrote your defense. We'll counter with trespass and conversion. Bring the budget page. Bring the photos. Bring your calm." Court was a gray Monday. Patricia, in a navy blazer and pearl studs binders, tabbed like a candy store. Rick in a suit that never looks fully awake. The judge already tired of theater. The HOA's lawyer held up a plat from the 80s, showing a planned annexation, and the judge cut him off with a simple question. Was it ever recorded? Well, the association assumed. Assumed is not a recording intended, is not legal. Then, Rick laid down the county map and the deed parcel. 11294. My place. My line. And the judge said he was dismissing the plaintiff's claim for lack of standing, and our counterclaims could proceed or settle. Gavel small, but final. And for a second, the room made that soft exhale sound people make when power shifts. Patricia stared at the paper like it misspelled her name. I stepped outside, and the air tasted like metal and pine sap, and something uncoiled between my shoulders. I didn't know I'd been holding. You could cut to black there and call it justice, but real life loves a coda. Surveyors came up the ridge for a boundary review, tied to an injunction I'd filed when Patricia's crew tried to fence over my flower bed. Patel from the county measured twice and said my fence sat 2 feet inside my line. Clean as daylight. We sent certified letters to the HOA. The developer, Patricia, was advising on a future project next door, and the clerk any encroachment on parcel 11294 would be willful trespass, and the equipment packed up like a carnival that heard the town sheriff was coming. County bulletin posted a pause on their project, pending review of submitted plats. And sometimes you don't need to swing. You just let the paper do the talking. So here's where I land, and yeah, it's personal. Some folks build thrones out of rules and call it community. They weaponize the word standards to make people smaller, because small is easy to manage. And then they meet someone who knows how to stack a chord file, a map, keep a receipt, and smile when selling. The lodge its own logs back at market rate. You might call that petty. I call it balance. You know what I mean. And before you ask, no, I didn't gouge the neighbors who were cold. I helped where I could, because I still have to live here after the comments fade. Now it's your turn. Did I push it too far, or just far enough? Are HOAs a necessary break on chaos, or a way to centralize power in the hands of whoever loves clipboards the most? If this were your winter and your wood, and your name on a line that someone tried to redraw with a smile, what would you have done? Pay the fine, fight back, or something? I haven't thought of yet. Tell me in the comments. Share this with the one neighbor who gets it. And if you want more true life stories like this, hit subscribe and drop your own elk hollow in the thread below.